Good evening. My name is Nick Simmons, and I'm the Senior Advisor to Secretary Cardona, focusing on school reopening and academic recovery. We are very excited to have you joining us today for what will be a great conversation about one of the most important pillars of supporting the academic recovery of our students: widespread access to high quality tutoring. Since COVID-19 disrupted our schools in March 2020, inequitable and widening learning gaps have plagued our students. Today, it is estimated that all students are on average 4 to 5 months behind in math and ELA skills. But there are inequitable racial gaps in these figures, as students of colors are estimated to be 2 to 3 months behind their white peers. These learning gaps could have drastic consequences for our young people, as some estimate that if they are not resolved urgently, we could see a tripling of the dropout rate, which would lead to an additional 2 million young people not graduating high school each year. And just imagine the emotional toll being a young person who missed nearly 18 months of in-person instruction. Think of this year's high school freshman class, where the last time many of the students were in a classroom was when they were in 7th grade. Think of the second graders who had never been in a school building ever before this school year. It is no wonder that we have seen a 20-point increase in the percent of young people who report struggling with their mental health and increased feelings of sadness. But this is not a hopeless situation. We have learned from the experts that providing high dosage, quality tutoring to our students can be a proven and effective method to quickly help them get back on track. When done effectively, high dosage tutoring provided by well-trained individuals who collaborate with students' teachers and use quality instructional materials can translate to anywhere between 3 and 15 months of additional learning and also improve the mental and emotional well-being of students. In short, tutoring has the potential to not only support students with their reading, their writing, their science, and their math skills, but also it can help foster self-confidence in their abilities, can rekindle a love of learning, and it can rebuild a feeling of connection and belonging to their school communities. Considering these powerful benefits, it is no wonder that President Biden made a call to action in his March State of the Union for more Americans to step up and serve as tutors in their local school communities. And we are thrilled that so many states, districts, schools, and organizations have taken up this call. In February, 72% of the nation's 100 biggest school districts said they plan to offer tutoring, according to a survey from the Center on Reinventing Public Education. In a survey by EdWeek in April and May of 2021, 97% of district leaders said tutoring was already being offered or would soon be to about 1/3 of their students. That's 17 million of the country's 51 million K-12 students receiving tutoring. There is a tutoring movement happening all across the nation, and one that could be a true turning point for our education system. We are excited to have two individuals today who are doing great work in the tutoring field, building programs that implement evidence-based practices and are designed not just as quick fixes, but to be sustainable and long-lasting features of our education system. More than anything, these individuals are helping our students wake up each morning with extra supports in their schools and a renewed excitement about their learning. Dr. Missy Wally is the Director of Special Projects for the Arkansas Department of Education, Division of Elementary and Secondary Education. As Director of Special Projects, Dr. Wally coordinates and oversees numerous education projects, including Professional Learning Communities of Arkansas, PLC Regional Networks, High Reliability in Arkansas, and Arkansas's Tutoring Corps. With 29 years of education experience, Dr. Wally has served as a teacher, principal, school improvement specialist, and a state and federal programs director. Kevin Huffman is the executive director of the newly launched Accelerate, a new initiative to embed high-impact tutoring throughout our education system by funding innovation and providing district and state education leaders, as well as nonprofit organizations and other partners, with technical assistance for how high-impact tutoring can be most effectively implemented, as well as scaled. Previously, Kevin served as the Commissioner of the Tennessee Department of Education from 2011 to 2015. Under his tenure, the state of Tennessee experienced the greatest academic gains in a single testing cycle for the NAEP test, including strong improvements for African American students. We are so excited to have Missy and Kevin here with us today to talk more about how they are implementing tutoring in their communities. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, thank you for having us. We would like to share just a little bit of what Arkansas has been working on with the Arkansas Tutoring Corps. We're going to present this by myself here from the Arkansas Department of Ed in the Division of Elementary and Secondary Ed, and also the Office of Education Renewal Zone. The Office of Education Renewal Zone is 6 different offices located throughout the state. Those are mostly they're all at universities. We've got 2 from the Office of Education Renewal Zone joining us today for the presentation from the University of Arkansas in Monticello and the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville. But we also have representatives of the ERZ from Southern Arkansas University in Magnolia, University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, I've said Fayetteville, I'm sorry, University of Arkansas in Fort Smith. And then we have Arkansas State University and Henderson State University. My name is Missy Wally. Again, I'm with the Arkansas Department of Education, the Division of Elementary and Secondary Education, and I'm with the Office of Special Projects. So Arkansas Tutoring Corps runs out of our office. We started this basically on as many of you, through a response to COVID. We started this though through a legislative act, Act 912 of 2021, to address learning loss by providing readily accessible tutors to the Arkansas K-8 students. Now, we offer it to K-8 students. However, if we have a high school student who's wanting to have some tutoring, we always will make sure, we try not to turn any student down. The Arkansas Tutoring Corps, our main focus is connecting schools and communities to support student success by accelerating the learning with high dosage tutoring. What I wanted you to know too is what we did not do, as Arkansas did not go through this program itself, is not a program as far as setting up an after school program or before school program. It is working with the tutors themselves. So we did not approve the model to create another program. However, we do have a support to create that program through another grant where we do have some after school, out of school network affiliates who we work with. This program that I'm discussing today is mainly to build the capacity of human capital to support tutors so that they can go out and support individual students and learning needs of those students. And within the community. So in order to give these supports that as we're training the tutors, they are building their community to respond to student learning. We used ESSER and ARP funding to support this. And I will tell you, as we started building the model, our first piece was to target ed prep students at these universities through the Arkansas, through the education renewal zones, in order to work with our ed prep students and build that teacher shortage that we're having, the teacher pipeline, because we are having a teacher shortage, again, as many of you I'm sure are experiencing. But how do we get this so that we can prepare ed prep students to get into the schools and also compensate them for some of their time, because we know many of them have to quit jobs in order to do their internship, or many of them miss that internship, that student teaching year, because of COVID and the pivoting of back and forth between virtual learning and on-site learning. Some exciting things to celebrate since we have started the Arkansas Tutoring Corps is right now, and we started it in September, putting the processes together. We have 873 applications as of April the 4th. Our goal was only to have 500 in a year. So we far superseded that. We have 558 active tutors. We started recruitment in September of 21 with the goal of 500 by October of 22. And as you can see, we've met that number. So we're just going to increase our goal and continue servicing students and receiving the feedback to know how to target and change our training as we're going. We have conducted 100 trainings so far. And when I say trainings, the directors of ERZs have gone out and they do face-to-face trainings at all areas across the state so that they can, one, just for the ease of access for the tutors and within the communities, knowing that we will probably lose some if we ask them to travel to those universities. So the director of ERZs are going into the communities and they're providing these trainings wherever they are needed. So since September till now, we've offered 100 trainings. And let me say those 100 trainings have all been face-to-face. They have not been virtual. And then the other thing is that, again, I said we have met our goal since January of 22. We met that 500. So we're on target right now to have 1,000 Arkansas Tutoring Corps members by the end of the summer. So just knowing, I mean, our goal is not just getting 1,000 by the end of the summer, but our goal is to make sure that they're servicing the students and that they're well equipped to address that learning loss within the schools. And I often refer to, I just remember when I was in the school and a principal, I would have to stop and prepare a tutor where that student is and what their needs are. So our goal is to make sure that we equip these tutors with the curriculum to go in and to work with these students and know how to give a pre-assessment, determine exactly where they are. So it's not overwhelming and causing additional planning for the administrators or for the teachers. We started with the recruitment, like I said, in September of 21. And I mentioned that we also started with the Arkansas Tutor with the higher education teacher prep candidates. We started with those offices and the education renewal zones. We also targeted retired teachers, current classroom teachers and paraprofessionals, college students. So if you have a freshman or sophomore and they have not declared their major, wouldn't it be great if you've got someone who we are utilizing for the tutoring program and they decide, hey, education is what I want to be. An educator is what I want to do and that's my calling. And they figured that out through the Arkansas Tutoring Corps. That's a win-win for us. So we targeted college students and community members, you know, in order to build those services and create something that community members can offer those wraparound services for their students in need and service their community at organizations. You can do faith-based organizations, boys and girls clubs, and then within the site approvals, we have already approved all public education facilities, all universities, and then our education services cooperatives are all approved sites. But if you have an additional site that would like to request approval, site approval, such as those faith-based organizations or Boys and Girls Club, they can do that because we want to make sure that we reach as many students as possible. Okay, that was the recruitment piece. So then we started building that curriculum. You know, what do we do with the curriculum and how are we going to train them? And we wanted to make sure that we aligned the curriculum with the state and the things that were going on in the state. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Tracy Jones from the University of Arkansas, Monticello, who's a director of ERZ, to talk about how we went with the curriculum and what that looks like.
All right. So when we took over and started looking at the curriculum that we wanted to provide to all of the tutors, we do not require that they use the curriculum, but we were training them in that. So we wanted to make sure that everything is aligned to the state initiatives. So in Arkansas, we looked at the science of reading for our literacy, and we have MathQuest that the state is supporting for our elementary and middle level math initiatives in the state. So we contacted the State Department, the Department of Learning Services, and talked to them about looking at vendors who supported those needs. So we chose 2 curriculum vendors, one for literacy and one for math, and we provided training and support to prepare our tutors to go out and do training. So the goal of the Arkansas Tutoring Corps is to prepare banks of qualified and certified tutors. And so in that, we have a training program that supports the curriculum as we move forward. Missy already mentioned that our main focus is on K-8 literacy and math, but we do support 9-12 as requested. So when we finally chose the curriculum, that moved us into the training layout. And so we are actually in the process of laying out additional training for the next year. But our first year of implementation, we knew it would need to be ongoing because we have tutors enrolling throughout the year. It's not just a one time, we're not doing it by cohort. So the first initial training that we take them through is an orientation, and that is done face to face. And so in that face-to-face training, they're having to complete some paperwork. We're going through Arkansas Code of Ethics. We're talking about FERPA guidelines, those types of things, and getting to know them and helping them understand what the requirements are of the program. In that, they also have to complete background checks. So every tutor coming in has to have a current background. So if you're already a public school teacher or a paraprofessional, or maybe even you're a college student in our teacher prep program who've recently had a background check done with the State Department, then those people can automatically come in. If not, we put everyone through background checks because we want to make sure everyone can pass that in order to work with our students. So you'll notice that I've shown you an example of what the year one training looks like. So year one, we have 7 levels. Level 1 is a little bit more intense because it is the background check, some of our beginning literacy and math training, and the face-to-face training. So once they complete that, they receive a stipend check for their training of $500. Level 2, we add in some tutoring required hours. So we're going to be required to complete the training components that we outline. And again, those are online and a combination of math and literacy, and then other things such as introduction to dyslexia, trauma-informed classroom, social emotional learning, and developing relationships with students. And in that, then they have to give 20 hours of tutoring time. Again, you'll see in level 3 through 6, it's 30 hours, and level 7 is an additional 35 hours for a total of 175 hours of tutoring time that they provided. Now, again, we are providing them a stipend on the training that they have received. Their tutoring is totally separate, but it is a requirement of the program. Then you'll notice we are in the process right now of doing training levels for our year 2 and year 3. We have about 8 to 10 tutors. It changes daily. I know we have a couple on the last minute slide of trying to get in who've already completed the first 11 levels of training. So we're in the process of laying out the next level so they can move right in and provide services this summer in the summer tutoring programs. I want to turn it over to Lindsay Calhoun, who will talk about our sustainability.
Yes, so we basically formed a very large database that houses all of the information from the initial application that our tutors submit. It contains some of their background check information, such as dates for when those were passed. And when we transition them over to what we call active status, where they get enrolled in their curriculum training that Dr. Jones just talked about. We also, Missy mentioned that there were 6 of us. So Tracy and I serve as project leads, but we use all 6 of us for various aspects of this project to make it run efficiently. So we all share one email address, and that really helps with our communication points so that our tutors are emailing one email address, but then they also get the benefit of having quicker and faster response times. So keeping that active communication piece there. We also host monthly support meetings. They are required to attend one of those. And during those meetings, we'll really get some of their feedback for how things are going. It allows the tutors to talk to other tutors across the state for what's working or what they might want to try next. And just really kind of brainstorming off of each other. And then we also use that information to make changes to our program, to use that feedback for planning the curriculum and the training pieces for year 2 and year 3. And then also addressing what their needs are. And so an example of that is that we had some tutors that were tutoring within the school district that they were currently affiliated with, but were looking to get more hours outside of that. And so we went ahead and developed some information on schools that are accepting tutors, the tutors, if they want to be added to a database that Dr. Wally will share here in a little bit, so that schools can see or parents can see who is available to tutor within their region. Oh, sorry. Okay, so this is kind of a glimpse of what the data reporting tab of this database would look like. So it holds, again, all of the information, but we wanted to make sure that we were representative across the state and not just saturated in one corner or another. So you can see here that we had 873 applications as of yesterday. And then our teacher demographic, so how many are currently licensed teachers, how many are LEA stands for they're affiliated with a school district, so they may be a parapro or a teaching aide. Those that hold a lifetime teaching license, so our retired teachers, our higher education students, faculty, and then other would just kind of be our community members at large. And we'll use this database and other tabs in this to track the number of hours that they've completed for each training levels, to track the total number of curriculum that has been completed, and then how many have done all of the requirements for both levels, since they can work ahead in one and then get caught back up in the other. And so how many of them have completed the requirements for all of the levels. We also use this to track their curriculum progress, and we'll email them out as needed to help monitor that. And we'll do that through email or phone calls or in person. We use this to track our invoicing and payments, as well as our open tutoring site locations and where our tutors are currently tutoring at. And so it's really kind of the overall project. Everything that we would need to know is kind of stored in one database. We are looking forward to this next year in the 22-23 school year with partnering with our Ed Rising school chapters. And so that will allow Ed Rising teachers and their junior and senior students to partner up with Arkansas Tutoring Corps to tutor in literacy for grades K-6 within their own school district. And for that, the teachers will receive a stipend of $500 in the fall semester, $500 in the spring semester. And then their students are going to be on a similar to what our Arkansas Tutoring Corps tutors are on with their levels. Our Ed Rising students will be on a tier system. So at the completion of tier 1, which again would include that curriculum and training piece, as well as tutoring hours, would be 300. And then for tier 2 would be 400, and tier 3 would be 500. But this will really allow us to get those students who are already interested in education kind of a real hands-on glimpse of what it's like to work with students and make that difference in their learning. And Dr. Woolley, I'll turn it back over to you to talk about the community.
Thank you, Ms. Calhoun and Dr. Jones, for contributing with this. I just want to add to that last piece, that Ed Rising, that is also in response to our teacher shortage, in order to, with the mentality of grow your own in the education field. So how do we get to those juniors and seniors and those students in high school as they're trying to determine what they want to major in, to give them a little piece of experience in tutoring the students and setting those growth mindset with the students and meeting those goals with the students as they work through that tutoring. This slide here, you'll see this is our community database. This was also, again, something that was developed after as a response to COVID, and it was through all of the state departments, because what we realized is as you had families who were looking for medical needs, for clothing needs, food, whatever needs they had, they were looking at several different resources to do that. And so we were reaching out to the Workforce Commission. We were reaching out to our Department of Human Services and saying, you know, where's this resource? Where's this resource? In order to respond to the needs of our families during COVID. And what we found is that families having to go out to all of those different agencies to get their answers proved to be taxing. So how could we develop something that is a statewide community resource portal? So we did this at the Department of Ed, but we did this in conjunction with Workforce Community and with the Human Services, Department of Human Services, and other agencies within the state. And you'll see within this piece is it's one website, again, that everyone can access, they can choose by county, and then they can choose their category of what they need, such as if it's medical needs, I can go to my county, which may be Pulaski County, and then I can look at my region, and then I can look at the categories and the needs. And it could be that, which places are offering free medical care. But what we did is we took this Arkansas Tutoring Core and we married it with this resource in order to take another step out from our community to be able to find those resources at an easier location. So they can choose, and obviously we have to have permission from the tutors as they become a qualified tutor and pass all of their background checks. They are added to this statewide community resource portal. So if I'm in any county within the state, and Lindsay showed you on the database that we have tutors across all counties, they can choose which county. They can choose which category. So if I'm looking for an Arkansas a qualified tutor, then I can pull that qualified tutor. Or if I'm a qualified tutor and I'm looking for a site in order to tutor, I could also use this approved site, so that if we had any faith-based organizations, boys and girls clubs, foster care homes, or orphanages, or anything else that have, and we do have some of those that have applied for site approval, they know who they can contact in order to provide those services, those tutoring services. So this database, the tutors are in this, and you can connect. So we're using this as our connection of the tutors with the organizations, but also the organizations in the schools with the tutor. My other thing with that is I'm a school district and I'm in need of a substitute. And my substitute pool, which we've heard over the past year or two, our substitute pool of teachers is diminished. We can't get subs to fill class needs. Reaching out to these tutors and saying, hey, would you consider, you've passed your background check with the Arkansas Department of Ed, and you've gone through this curriculum training, would you consider being a sub in our school? Or would you consider, during our response to intervention time, would you consider coming in 2 days a week and providing some intense interventions during our response to intervention time? So really the way that districts could use this resource is they just need to think outside of the box. I would use it to, and we try to put that out there to them when you're looking for subs and when you're looking for ed prep students, or this is a great resource. So in closing, I just wanted to say, what we will continue to do is we'll make sure that we connect. And I use the Office of ERZs because they are our connectors. They may be located on a university campus, but they connect K-12 with universities, and they also connect the department with the universities and K-12. So we'll continue making sure that connection, and that we're listening, and what are their needs, and within that collaborative feedback, what can we get? We'll continue advancing this training and grow. As we learn the needs of those schools and we find out their feedback, that's when our training will change those trainings and adapt to what they need. We'll continue with the partnerships of K-12 and make sure that the districts are aware of this. We'll also be reaching out to organizations, especially with summer school coming up, who's offering those church camps during the summer, who's often offering those summer school programs where they may need someone to come in and offer these services during their summer camps. And this would be a way to connect that and have those partnerships with them. And obviously our number one thing is just that communication, is making sure that we continue receiving feedback, but we want to look at the evidence. And Lindsay mentioned the monthly tutorial support. That's very important, and that is a requirement before they get their stipends, is they have to attend that monthly support, because we want to hear their feedback. But we also want to see the evidence of what they're doing with their students. Is it working? Are the students actually growing? Because ultimately our goal is student learning and to close those achievement gaps. So how are we doing that, and how can we better serve the tutors and the districts in order to close that learning gap and work with them in that? So we'll make sure that we keep that communication, and we'll start collecting that evidence to show that student growth and who's utilizing the services. We know tutoring is only as good as it's being utilized, and if it's not being utilized, then it cannot be effective. So we want to make sure that what we're doing is is effective in learning. That is a lot in such a short amount of time. We welcome any questions, any information, any feedback that you have for us. Our contact information is in the slide, and we'll be available for questioning. Again, this is something new for us, but something that has taken off, and it is growing daily, quicker than we realized, which is great. It's great. So making sure that we utilize that. Thank you so much, and I look forward to learning from all of you as well.
Good afternoon. My name is Kevin Huffman, and I am CEO of Accelerate. Accelerate is a new nonprofit that is dedicated to expanding nationwide access to high impact tutoring and individualized learning. And in a previous life, I was the state commissioner of education in Tennessee. So I'm very excited to be here with you today to talk about the ways that we have seen districts across the country using recovery funds to try to bridge gaps in learning and help kids. I'll start by just saying that as many of you, especially people working in districts and states, no doubt know, this is a very prevalent use of funding is on high impact tutoring. Future Ed, which is a think tank that's based at Georgetown University, did an analysis state by state across the country and found that as much as $3.6 billion of relief money is being spent on tutoring. So this is something that's happening in most districts across the country at this point in time. And it makes sense that that is the case. High impact tutoring is one of the very few proven strategies that helps bridge gaps in learning. It's one of the only things that has a true evidence base that has held up over time, that shows that you can close gaps in achievement. And this is true even in comparison to things class size reduction and other strategies that have some evidence behind them. Our partners at National Student Support Accelerators, housed at Brown University at Annenberg, have done an excellent job over the years of identifying the factors that most predict success for tutoring programs. And they've identified a handful of things that have real evidence base behind them. So one of them is frequency, and the places that are getting the best results have at least 3 times a week of tutoring sessions that go at least 30 minutes. So there's high dosage and it's frequent. Small groups, so no more than 4 students. Scheduling during the school day. This is important because a lot of places, I think, have contemplated and some have tried after school tutoring, but it works better when it is done as part of the actual school day. Significant progress monitoring. So this is probably no surprise to people, but making sure that there is real tailored instruction based on the individual student's needs. And training and support. And that training and support both for the people delivering the tutors and to provide some level of connective tissue if it's not classroom teachers delivering the tutoring back to the classroom teacher, so that there is a relationship there. And then the last piece is making sure that there's a consistent tutor, that people are not swapping in and out new people. This is important both for the academic impacts, but also for the other impacts that tutoring provides. Tutoring has been shown, among other things, to have a positive effect on school attendance, which we all know that districts are struggling with this year as we come out of the pandemic. And so it's really important to have that level of consistency. Exciting work is happening all around the country. I'm going to highlight a few different places that we have worked in via America Achieves, which is the nonprofit where we are currently housed. But all over the country, people are trying different kinds of tutoring. So let me just focus on a few because I think they show a little bit of the kind of range of things that people are doing. So in Chicago, they launched the Chicago Public School Tutoring Corps, which has hired approximately 600 tutors already to serve in one of the largest scale district-run tutoring programs in the country. At Accelerate, our executive board chair is Dr. Janice Jackson, who was the superintendent in Chicago Public Schools, and so is deeply familiar with all the work that's happened there. And in Chicago, they've partnered with Saga Education, and Saga has been around for nearly 20 years doing tutoring work, and they've helped students primarily in math in Chicago, helping to institutionalize the work by training all of the tutors that Chicago Public Schools are using. And Chicago is also then partnering with the University of Chicago and MDRC to study the work and to understand what's working and what isn't. So that's a very sort of high scale, single district effort that shows a lot of promise. In Dallas, the Commit Partnership is a local nonprofit that works across district lines at a county level and building key partnerships. And so it's working with Dallas Independent School District, Garland ISD, and also with Uplift, a charter management organization, trying to help all of them implement high impact tutoring. One of the things that Commit has done in Dallas is facilitate a county-wide recruitment strategy and support strategy. And by marketing county-wide, they can build a pool of tutors that then all of the districts and schools can tap into. So that eases the design. And so one of the challenges I think people have seen around the country is how do you recruit enough teachers? In Dallas, one of the ways they're taking that on is by using a nonprofit partner on the ground and having a county-wide partnership that allows a bunch of different districts to access resources. And then Guilford County, North Carolina, which is the third largest school district in North Carolina, is another example of a place that we have done some work with via our funding and via America Achieves that is doing really interesting high impact tutoring. They've focused on math in grades K to 12, on early literacy, and on middle grade science as well. Their tutoring program is serving more than 2,000 students and happening in 100 plus schools across the district. They are doing an excellent job of making sure that the tutors are trained in the curriculum that already is being implemented in the school, which allows there to be a real sense of continuity so that it feels like an extension of the work that's already happening. And they're using a mix of paid and volunteer tutors, which has helped reduce the per student cost, which will allow for some sustainability in the long haul. They've recruited tutors from local high schools and from North Carolina A&T, which is a local HBCU that they have a partnership with. And so they have had a lot of success by building recruitment pipelines and then getting people into the district in a way that allows them to work directly with teachers. They're partnering as well with Annenberg on an implementation study, which will help give more information to other districts as Annenberg gets some of that information back. Talk a little bit about Accelerate and how we're building on these national efforts. We launched earlier this month, and we are a new nonprofit organization that is leading the national effort to design, launch, improve, and scale high-impact tutoring. And one of the things that we're very focused on is helping as many districts across the country use their recovery money in an effective tutoring implementation, and then learning lessons that will allow us to keep this work going once the recovery money sunsets in the future years. So we're trying to fund and support innovation in schools and helping districts set up innovative programs. We are attempting to ensure that districts and states have access to technical assistance rooted in an evidence base. And then long-term, we're hoping to assemble national and state policy that will support the sustainability of high impact tutoring. So we know that this works. We know that districts across the country are spending billions of dollars on it. And we want to gather the best practices that are happening around the country, make sure people have access to them, and then help to figure out how to drive down the cost through effective implementation strategies so that in 2025 and 2026, districts can continue to do this work even at the end of the recovery funding. To that end, we've released a call to effective action, and actually we invite all of you to talk to districts and states and providers that you know who are interested in implementing innovative tutoring programs. So we are seeking partnerships for next school year to build a cohort of the leading innovators in the country on tutoring who want to try interesting, effective things using some of the funding that is available to implement high impact tutoring. And one of the things that we hope will come out of this is that we will wind up with a cohort of people who have best practices that we can spread to different districts and states, again, so that as the money from the federal government sunsets, great practices that were seeded over the last couple of years can continue. Very excited about the prospect of high impact tutoring becoming an important part of the fabric of American education. We had learning gaps that existed long before the pandemic, but they've been exacerbated, as we all know, during the pandemic. And I think the fact that districts and states have resources to dedicate to proven strategies, and that will allow the rest of us in the nonprofit and philanthropic communities to study some of that work and figure out how to continue the best practices moving forward at the end of this time period holds real promise for the future of public education in this country. So very glad to be here with you today, and thanks for all of the hard work that people are doing across the country.